All right, so we graph our parent. So let me go ahead and graph that. Should look like a smile. Just like so. All right, raise your hand if you can tell me AH and K. I'm just curious who know. I'm not going to call on you. I just want to know. How many of you all know what your AH and K would be? All right, so A is always the number in front of the parentheses. It cannot be 0. So A is 1. H is always on the inside, and you change the sign. So it wouldn't be a positive 1. It would be what? Negative 1. And K is negative 4. Where's your vertex going to be? Negative 1, negative 4. Good. All right, so pick up your calculators. So you're going to add the H to X, and H is negative 1. So pick up your calculators and add negative 1 all the way down. Feel free to grab a calculator if you don't have one on your desk. Also look underneath your desk because sometimes they'll be stored under. So pick up your calculator and add negative 1 all the way down. Let's get your 5 new X values. All right, so you should get negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1. Who had that? All right, good. So now for your Y values, if you look at the top, see we're doing 2 transformations. We're multiplying by A and we're adding K. So we're multiplying by 1, which doesn't change the value, but I'll write it anyway. And then we're also going to add negative 4. So go ahead and find these 5 values. Now, 2 of those will repeat. Whatever you get here for Y, you should get the same thing here. And whatever you get here, you should get the same thing here. So that's what makes the Y values go a little bit faster. So go ahead and find those numbers. Okay, raise your hand if you have those same numbers that I have. All right, go ahead and graph it. So again, this is a really big question on Friday. So we're at the last page of our notes. Go ahead and take out your notes and let's go to that very last page and we will finish it out. I'll pass out the review tomorrow, but we're on the back page. And then that's everything that is on the Quiz Friday. So let's go to that very back page, which is page 7. So if you have, I probably should pass out like color pencils, but this is the graph. This graph is the one we're writing the equation for right here. You see how there's 2 graphs? All right, so the one that looks like a lighter gray, that's g of x. That's the one we're talking about. And see how it says assume no stretch or compression. So what that means is that our a values, a is going to be a +1 or a -1. How are we going to know? How do we know if it's +1? You just set it over there. How do we know if it's +1 or -1? If it's +1, what is it going to look like? Whenever the parabola is positive, what does it look like? A smile or a frown? A smile. So if it's positive, it looks like a smile. If it's negative, it looks like a frown. All right, so let's go ahead and look at these and see if we can figure out our equation. So first of all, when I'm looking at this yellow one, the one that I traced in yellow, and I compare it to the parent, this is the parent, it's still a smile. So that means that A is 1. What do you notice happened to this graph? Did it move up, down, left, or right? So if you compare this parabola to this first parabola, what did it do? It went down. How many did it go down? 1, 2, 3, 4. You see how it went down 4? So because the transformation was that it went down 4, what is that going to affect? Does that change my H or K value? Which one moves it down, H or K? K. So that means K is -4. Now this parabola did not go left or right, so H is 0. So the vertex of my new parabola is at 0, -4. So all we're going to do is write our equation. And I should probably write this at the top of the page. I'm going to go ahead and write that. Hold on. So y equals A. This is called transformation form. And all I want you to do is, now that you have identified A, H, and K, I just want you to substitute it into this equation right here, A, H, and K. So let's write our possible equation. So our possible equation will be y equals, and what did we say A was? Because it's a smile, what is A? +1. Make your parentheses. In your parentheses, you have x minus h, and what is h? 0, because it didn't go left or right, squared. And then my k value is -4, so we'll just put a -4. And that would be my possible equation. Now, because we have x minus 0, we can just put x squared, but I'm just going to be consistent and keep it that way. Let's just keep it that way. All right, let's look at this equation. What do we notice changed? First of all, is this second graph a smile or a frown? It's a smile, so that means that A is going to be 1. Now this time, this graph moves to the left. How many hops did it go to the left? 1, 2. Do you see how it moved to the left 2? So let's write that it moved left 2. It did not go up or down. So because it moved left, that means h would be -2. K is 0. So my vertex is at -2, 0. Let's write our equation. So our equation would be y equals 1, make your parentheses. Now h is tricky. So even though it's a negative, what am I going to put on the inside of the parentheses? X plus 2, good. And then plus 0. All right, 2 more questions. So again, we have y equals a, and then it's x minus h squared. Sorry, I'm trying to fit this in there. Okay. All right, so this is my graph here. Let me zoom in. This is my graph. So this moved twice. So what's one thing, what's one change? This is the new vertex, and this is where I started. So to get from here to here, the first thing it did was it moved to the right. How many to the right did it go? 3. So is that H or K? H. So H is +3 because it moved to the right 3. Go ahead and write that. It moved right 3. And then what else did it do though? It didn't just go to the right 3. It also hopped up, right? It went up 1. So write that. It moved up 1, which makes K +1. All right, do you think A is +1 or -1? Is it a smile or a frown? Smile. So A is still going to stay positive. And where's my vertex? +3, +1. Let's go ahead and write your equations. Write your equation, not equations. Go ahead and put in your A, H, and K, and you're done. Remember, inside, instead of a +3, you're going to put a -3. And then +1 goes out here. And this is the last page of homework, too. I got Leslie and Leo and everybody got their heads down and stuff. I'm like, man, we only got 1 more question and we finish. All right, let's look at D. When I'm looking at this one, I'm noticing that it went upside down. So that means that A for this one is -1. All right, so to get from this point to this point, I go to the right 4. So I want you to write that, right 4. Which means H is +4. And then what else did it do? It went down 2. I heard somebody say down 2, good. So that would be your K value. So your vertex is at 4, -2. Go ahead and try to write your equation. So you're just dropping in A, H, and K. So it would be y equals A. Now, what are you going to put inside of your parentheses? X plus 4 or X minus 4? X minus 4 squared. And then -2. All right. So that is the end of 12A. Yes. Okay, so that's a good question. So do you notice here in this format? See, that's just the format of that equation. And for a quadratic always has a square in it. X squared.